Hey guys, thanks for joining us on the LibertyWERX podcast. My name's Dustin. I'm the Director of Technology at LibertyWERX, and today we're going to be talking about defense ventures. I actually have no idea what defense ventures are, so I was wondering, Mike, if you could talk to us a little bit about it. Tell me what they are.
Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Michael Sullivan. I am the former Director of Operations at LibertyWERX, and I just got done going through Defense Ventures. Defense Ventures is a program intended for the Department of Defense employees, all the way from enlisted to officers to even some GS employees. And our whole stick is you get to be partnered with a venture capital or a startup technology company, and you get to learn the way they do business and take those best practices and bring them back to the DoD. It's all about creating a better partnership and just making connections so that way we can speed up innovation in the Department of Defense. I'm going to hand it on over to Chef, and he can explain a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm Siobhan Clark. I am currently the Director of Portfolio Operations for LibertyWERX. I was in DVP cohort 13. I was actually with a venture capital firm. So in DVP, you're either with a venture capital firm, an accelerator, or with a startup. And that's based on shifts. Shift has a proprietary algorithm when you apply. There's essay questions as well as your resume. That determines who you might get matched with, depending on your interest and the host interest. The things that I wrote expressed my willingness to go and work VC, but also to do startup stuff. It's very interesting how I got selected to go to Squadra. Squadra is an early stage VC. They're focused on mainly cybersecurity and national security. And I think what brought me to them is I'm a computer science major and my actual focus is in cybersecurity. So it's very interesting how they were able to match us together. And maybe Ike can introduce himself and also talk about how he got matched with his company and what may have led them to matching him.
Sweet. Thanks, Siobhan. So hi, everybody. So I'm Isaac Ike Holly. I am the current Chief Innovation Officer over at LibertyWERX, one of the founders. So a little bit of background on DVP. So a lot of military individuals, like when we engage them, right, they're unaware of these, let's just call them non-traditional pathways. And that's what DVP is. I would refer to it as a non-traditional pathway for enlisted officer, GS employees, just like Sully was saying. And it kind of grew out of an opportunity that the AFWERX Spark Deputy Director, Garrett Custins, it was kind of his brainchild, right? So hopefully I get the story right. So back in the day, he actually embedded with a tech company, Decode, which is one of our innovation Sherpas in the DoD innovation ecosystem. And, he took that experience, and that's something that I think officers are given a lot more kind of opportunities to do. It's something they're aware of, these like fellowship opportunities. And, he was like, hey, why isn't this available to like everybody? Like, why aren't people aware of different programs like this? So, working with a company, Shift, they were looking at SkillBridge, and it's like, SkillBridge is a fantastic opportunity to basically, grow the skill sets within veterans that are transitioning out of the military. But what if we offered some sort of like mid-career opportunity to where we could actually embed these incredibly sharp, like, airmen, NCOs, officers from across the DoD, not just the Air Force, but across the DoD, right? What if we started embedding them into these small tech startup, these venture capitalist firms, these private equity firms, right? What if they were embedded for a period of time in which, they can learn, what does it take to operate in that private sector, in that public sector, at the speed of relevancy. And they can bring that methodology, they can bring those techniques, the technology, just, whatever the case may be, the networking opportunities, they can bring that right back into the DoD to basically supercharge our partnerships, our relationships with the industry side, to basically grow our capabilities, right? And one of the fantastic things it does for these companies, at least what I've discovered, is it allows these customers to kind of understand, like, hey, like the military, like we can better understand like what you as a military member, like what the military, the DoD actually needs from us. So like as we're building out these emerging techs, as these VC firms are looking to invest in defense capabilities, they can really understand the needs of the customer, aka the military members. So this is just an awesome opportunity. I just got done with DVP along with Sully. I was in cohort 14, this last cohort, and I actually had embedded with a small tech firm known as Peak Metrics. So they specialize in identifying misinformation and disinformation campaigns from across public sources of information. You're talking like millions of sources, right? Anything from like open source, things on the dark web. And what it is it actually ingests like all these different source feeds, and they aggregate it using a machine learning algorithm that's able to produce narratives. So taking what used to take these analysts, weeks and weeks to do, this thing can kick out a pretty decent narrative within minutes versus hundreds and hundreds of hours. So it was a really awesome experience. I really enjoyed getting to work with the company, and really enjoyed getting to learn everything I did and providing value back into some of our partners who've been working with the DoD. So yeah, hugely enjoyed that.
Ike, what's interesting is a lot of things you said really relate to like my journey and how I got into DVP, and it's looking for that unconventional path. It was really interesting. When I would talk to other enlisted people, and it's like they've never been on fellowships, they've never stepped outside their career field before. Then you talk to officers and they get all these opportunities to leave, go to school, and it's like on the enlisted side, we don't really have anything. And when I brought the letter to my commander to get him to release me to go to DVP, I had already known he had left for a year to go work at FedEx for a year, just running around FedEx, doing whatever he wanted to do. So I knew having the conversation with him would be a lot easier than if you had a commander who had never done that before. And it's like, so what are you bringing back? He understood the value of leaving, going to do something with private industry and bringing that back. And DVP allows that for us. But I still think it's relatively unknown. I mean, we've talked about this before. In my cohort, there was 3 enlisted people. Everyone else was a civilian or an officer. And it's like, if you're not already in these circles, it's kind of hard to find out that DVP exists and how great of an opportunity it is. And I think over time, Shift has definitely pushed it in a direction where more and more people are starting to take notice.
Yeah, 100%. The team at Shift, like they are just such an incredibly motivated team. I don't know if you guys actually like read their mission statement. I actually love it. So Shift's mission statement is to supercharge the defense industrial partnerships to underpin America's national security and economic vitality. Especially that economic vitality part, I thought that was really cool because a lot of us within the innovation space, we deal a lot with bridging the gap between military and industry sectors, right? And it's an amazing opportunity to see what's out there, and it just basically gives us more tools in our tool belt. So like if we're like doing small business innovation research fund projects or SUTRs, technology transfers, it allows us, just going through those things, it allows us, to work with these industry partners. And Shift just like cranks it up to 11. It's like Shift's like, hey, no, we already have this portfolio of amazing companies that we want to embed you guys in with, whether or not it's VC firms, like I said, private equity firms. So, so getting that knowledge out there to the enlisted side, like, hey, this is an opportunity that like you can take part of. Like you literally just need your commander's endorsement. And I thought it was funny too, because, and I'm probably getting this wrong to some extent, but if I understand it right, I think a commander can actually authorize you, like, I think up to 6 months to like go on basically like a TDY in place style, or you can like embed one of these companies. Like it's all up to your own commander, but 100%, like I remember we interviewed, we actually did a customer discovery sprint back in January, and we interviewed people, and we were just trying to figure out like what are the problems that people are experiencing in work centers. And it was kind of all over the place when we were looking at the data, but the one thing we kind of saw like the biggest trend in was the fact that when they were asking what we were doing, they were asking about our job and these things, we kind of went on these rants. We talked about like, oh, we do the information ecosystem. We work on projects. There's these opportunities out there, and just seeing the airmen, their eyes just go wide, and they're like, what? Like these are opportunities that I can apply for. And they're like, 100%. This is open to all members. They just need somebody to kind of like show them the way, open the door for them.
Yeah, I also went on a customer discovery journey in January with a separate team that month, and while we were discovering that stuff, the one thing that I noticed during that was just how excited people started to get when you started to invest in them, when you started to listen to their story. And then when you started giving them at least an opportunity to go explore other avenues like defense ventures or anything else in the DoD outside of their career field, people were like, how do I get involved? What do I need to do? Like they wanted to take the next step. They just didn't know how. It's like they were afraid of exploring. And it kind of started to shift things, at least secondary and third order effect, on how they saw or approached or who they could talk to. And that's why I think LibertyWERX kind of just started building up and growing, was because we could show people what type of opportunities out there. Like the reason why I found out about Defense Ventures program was my wife actually knew one of the previous cohorts, Angelo Lowry, and she had also met Isaac Hawley, and they're like, hey, you can go work with the private industry and see what they're up to. And I was like, yeah, I want to know more. Tell me more. Come here. And it was a no-brainer. It was like sign up and go, like whatever you need to do. And I'm just curious, Shafan or Ike, was that kind of how your journey went, or was it like completely different? Like to get into defense ventures?
I was really at this place in my career where it's like, I've done everything that I want to do. And it's like, I'm stuck. Like we're vectored to go certain places. I know where I'm going next. Maybe not the location, but I know the job. And really at the end of the day, you're just dealing with different personalities. And so for me, I was at that point where I was just looking for opportunities and things that interest me. Right. So I like computer science. At one point I was looking at, hey, can I go do a fellowship at Kessel Run? Wait, will my leadership actually release me to go do a 6-month TDY at Kessel Run? And then I just kept going down these rabbit holes trying to find opportunities. And I just came across Defense Ventures one day. I don't remember how I did, but I know that the cohort had just passed and I was like, damn, I wish I could have applied for that. And then the LibertyWERX fellowship had also just passed. And so I waited. And then I was like, okay, let me just submit an application, put together this resume. And I never thought I was actually going to get selected for DVP. Like I was like, there's no way that I'm going to get selected for this. There has to be more qualified people that are applying for this. There's absolutely no way possible. And so when I actually got the notification, I was like, wait, hold on, what happened? No. And that's when the imposter syndrome kicks in. And then when you start reading other people's bios, it really gets real. It's like, how did I really get selected for this? Like, there's no way possible that I'm in this group. And then you get there and it's like, okay, I'm with everyone who thinks like me. Like we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to move everything forward. We're not trying to be stuck in the past. And that was the enlightening portion. And credit to the shift team who understands that everyone who shows up probably has imposter syndrome, whether it's true or not. And their whole job is to get you out of that within the first 2 weeks. You're here for a reason. You're here to move the ecosystem forward. You got to accept that you got selected and you were selected for a reason. Now go do good work.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Giving credit to the shift team too. Like I was just incredibly grateful for the fact that, they had done so many cohorts before us, right? So they knew the gosh, what's a good word for it? They kind of knew like some of the, I guess, fears we would have, like the anxieties that we were all going to express, even if we didn't necessarily know it right away. So that was actually comforting. Like, hey, we've seen it all. Like you're gonna do fabulous. You guys are gonna do great through this. Like you're gonna get through this. Don't worry. It's funny. So I kind of go back to like, how you found out about it and stuff like that. So I had known about DVP for a while, like I said. So like I remember like when Garrett was getting the ball rolling, he had like talked about it and everything. It was something I was aware of. I just didn't have the time. I was already in the innovation space. I just didn't have the time really to devote to that. And thankfully, the team here, between Sully, Angelo, everybody was just like, hey, like you're about to move out of this space. Like you need to do something for yourself. You need to take this opportunity, even, basically kicking the can down the road. So I finally was like, yes, I got to do something. So, yes, I finally joined up after several cycles of people asking me why I hadn't done it yet. I'm super grateful I am, because I was just floored with the fact that it's like, hey, like, yeah, you're with your people, like you're with the people, you're with your tribe that, is wanting to do something. I don't say necessarily different, but it's almost like another calling or a higher calling. It's just like, hey, there's an impact here that's not being met, across the enterprise. And this is an opportunity to make that impact. So if you're passionate, like if you're driven, like this is your chance. Like you're at the show. So go forth and conquer. Actually, I think Sully's got a really great little saying he says. What is it? Like choose your own adventure? Is that what you said?
Right. Go forth and conquer is one of them. I don't know. I kind of took your empower, because basically like when you say empower, it's like this big massive thing of like, I empower you. And then like, I'm like holding a small child being like, I empower you. Please don't drop my child. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of when you're like, what's that saying you say? But like at the end of the day, it's about what you want to do. I'll actually turn this back. So I'm super sad that I don't get to like directly work with LibertyWERX all the time. But as we were hiring new people and just getting the next team set up, like I just remember looking at everybody going, hey, what is one thing that you're passionate about? Like at the end of the day, this is all I really want you to accomplish. Like this is what I believe you'll do and make the most impactful. And I bring that up to relate it to Defense Ventures too, because I just remember that like we'd have these coffee breaks and we would be sitting there, like it would range anywhere from like 2 or 3 of us to like 20 of us in a room. And I think I was just having a bad day and just doubting myself, with that imposter syndrome. But I was like, coming to these coffee chats, this is like my soul food. This is like what excites me and gets me to like be excited to go to work and know that like we're gonna go do something. And I just feel like that sometimes we lose that in the daily grind when we're not given opportunities to explore. So I know that's not my phrase, but it is soul food.
Hey, I like it. I think
We'll take it.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't know what it was like for you, Chiffon, but like, we get so kind of inundated on the grind, especially the military grind, right? The military is very structured. This is the way we've always done things, and I know one of my sayings is, I know I stole it from somebody else, but it's just like, hey, the things that got us here will not be the things that carry us forward. And it's just something we need to be aware of. So I love the opportunity to just explore different ways to get to the same like end state, or like at least that vision, right? And I mean, even like the smallest things in my experience, I loved like not just learning, but actually like going on that journey of getting things done in like a fraction of the time and with way less bureaucracy, way less complication. Like that was something that just was like so refreshing for me. Maybe that was my soul food. Like, I mean, like little things and big things, like some of the things that Schiff was putting on for us, like doing, sprint challenges, or, talk to folks. Like I just, it was, the barriers were just like open, like all the doors were open, all the gates were open. It was just like, hey, you have access. Like what can you get done with all the doors are open for you?
Yeah, it was
So go for it, Chiffon.
the passion for me. Like, I look at my career field, no one has like a passion for the job they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then you come into innovation space and it's like, oh no, everyone is motivated to be here. Like, everyone is passionate about the things that they're doing. And it is somewhat weird the first time, and it's like, why is everyone so motivated? And then you spend a little bit of time here and it's like, no, we're driven. Everyone is driven towards the future. And it's okay to say we don't know what the next 5 to 10 years looks like, but we're moving forward. And that's not what you can say about a lot of the career fields that we come from. Things move really, really, really slowly. And then you come to this space and things move really, really fast. And it's like, how do you keep pace with that? This is
Chiffon, would you say? No,
Go ahead.
100. Yeah. Would you say, you brought up an interesting phrase where you're like, people aren't passionate. I wonder, and this is open to anybody, right? Like I wonder, do you think people are maybe not as motivated or let's say passionate about the way they get things done versus them actually like what success looks like, what the end state is? I think people have I think everyone's passionate about the goal. We wouldn't be in the military like if we did not have this vision of like, why am I here? Like, am I here to support the country? Am I here to support my people, defend my people? Like, I think everyone's passionate about like that goal state, that high state. I think the thing that kind of disillusions individuals in the military sometimes is maybe the path to get there isn't necessarily what they thought it was going to be. And maybe that's kind of like, I don't know, drives a little bit of just like, I don't know, desire to try new ways, right? But again, there's so much red tape and there's so much, tradition in our processes, that it's kind of hard to break that mold. So yeah, I think that's where like that innovation space really comes into play, where it's just like, hey, we're gonna break the mold. What can you do? If everything is open to you, if everything's given to you, like what can you get done?
No, I definitely agree with that. Because you could say that everyone here is passionate about protecting the country, but that's one of those things you can say, and most people don't actually like see that. Like, how do you see freedom, right? I'm pretty sure you could find something that says, no, this is what freedom looks like, but on a day-to-day basis, people don't see that. And so the journey for a lot of people is there's no actual like end state. There's no wins, right? We talk about quick wins. Those quick wins is what gives you that motivation to keep going. And people get really caught up in the grind because they don't see that. I just see what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, right? What's the success look like? One of the things my boss used to tell me all the time when I was at the Manpower Requirements Squadron, and I was getting really, really frustrated with the study that I was doing, he was like, slow down, all right? This is what I need you to understand. You can't measure what you can't define. And sometimes we have a really hard time defining what success looks like, but we're trying to measure success. You're right. You were putting the cart before the horse on that one. A lot of times that's what we end up doing.
So true.
So
Hey, I got a question. Actually, no, Dustin, please go ahead. I was literally about to call on you. Go ahead.
thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So first off, Chef, whenever you started off introducing yourself and telling your story, you mentioned there were 3 different types of companies you could possibly do a defense venture with. One was a venture capital firm, the other was a startup. I don't remember what your third one was, but could you explain those a bit greater detail? What is a venture capital firm? What is a startup? What are these companies that are available to us to try and do a defense venture with?
So the 3 was a venture capital firm, a startup, or an accelerator. I want to say private equity is also somewhat included in that. I don't remember seeing anyone go to private equity, though I think they are a network. So a venture capital firm, to keep it brief, they invest in early stage companies throughout the life cycle of a company, from very early stage startup to a startup that has a foundation and needs some growth capital, right? So that's their entire job. And what they do is they take in pitches depending on which stage of the investing life cycle that they specialize in, right? So there's certain stages that a VC will actually specialize in, such as early stage or growth, or they have a narrow focus on a particular sector, right? So the ones that we generally get paired with are in dual use technology. This is technology that applies to the commercial sector as well as to defense. So there's two vectors on that one. Those are generally the ones that are in Shift's network. We also have startups, and this is more broad in terms of the startups that Shift works with. Not all of them create technology just for the DoD. A lot of them create technology for the commercial side, and then it's find an application on the DoD side, or someone on the DoD side says, okay, this technology might apply to something that we're doing or a capability that we need in the future. And then the last one is an accelerator, which is sort of like a VC in some cases, but an accelerator really takes in a few startups at a time, such as a cohort, and they will help foster that startup, foster the idea, and then present a packaged product up to other VCs to get funding. So it takes them from one stage possibly to another, especially if you have an early stage startup that is ready to take on capital because they haven't fully gotten product market fit or they don't have an MVP yet. The accelerator can help them do that.
And just for those who don't know what an MVP is, that is a minimal viable product. What is the least amount of work for us to get the product out there for the customer's demand?
Boom.
All right.
Nailed
both. Ike, you were talking about this whole thing. It's a non-traditional pathway or unconventional pathway, and you mentioned there were some other fellowship opportunities out there. Is Shift the only fellowship opportunity we have available, or are there others? You mentioned SkillBridge as well, but that's sort of for the separating member.
Yeah, so yeah, SkillBridge is for like when you're separating out. And you know, it's interesting. So there's actually a whole multitude of these different fellowship programs, and I'm not aware of like all of them. So like I know there's like Blue Horizons. I know several people within the space have been able to go to that one. There's like the MIT Accelerator. So you got that one. I think it's the Phantom Accelerator, something like that. There's a whole bunch of different like opportunities like that. But you know, kind of going back also to what I said earlier. You know, your commander like can basically authorize you to spend so much time. Like you can actually embed with the company. Like Shift just basically took something like they're like, hey, this is the model. Like this is the model. But like anybody can do this within the DoD if you at least know like the recipe for success, like how to do this, right? So there's a lot of like newer programs that are kind of starting up. Like one of those, Project Mercury, that is starting up. It's more like an embedding like a training program that came out of a partnership with their university and private industry. I think, the AFWERX refinery, that's actually pretty new. That's another brainchild between Garrett Custins, Steve Lauer, and all them. That's like a mini accelerator, if you will. We actually just sent 2 back-to-back teams through 2 cohorts at AFWERX refinery. So that's like 4 weeks, like TDY paid for. 2 weeks is like TDY in place, and then you have like a week in Right Pat working at the actual refinery. Then you spend a week in DC pitching to VC firms, folks in the Pentagon, A staff, all those folks. So that's something that like any airman with a great idea can take advantage of. AFWERX Fellowship, that's another one that individuals can take advantage of. I want to say that's every 5 months. You can actually just, if your commander approves it, you can actually just embed TDY in place and work remotely and actually embed in one of the different teams or branches, the divisions of AFWERX, whether it's AFWERX Spark, App Ventures, or AFWERX Prime. There's a lot of these opportunities that just exist out there. Even the DVP, there's like the 8-week program. There's also the Defense Ventures Tour. So, we all went through the 8-week program, right? DVP. But the Defense Ventures Tour is like, hey, you do a year. That's 12 months where you actually work with those different firms. That's a much longer process, but it enables you to bear more fruit. And Shafan, when you're kind of talking about how the different teams work, I don't know if you guys are aware of some of the some of the historical relevance that led to developing these programs. So going back to dual use technology, one of the things that the DoD noticed, right, is that back in the day, our pool of industry kind of partners was pretty tight, pretty small. We just seemed to have the same legacy members that were kind of we always kind of went through with contracts, right? And the problem was we're always buying something that's been developed it's already been in place. It's a commercially off the shelf item. It exists, right? And we see that it's been successful in the private sector for 5-10 years, and we try to bring it into the military. But the problem was it was never built for us. We're trying to adapt it. We're trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. So growing our DoD and industrial sector expansion, those partnerships, we're trying to get in on the ground floor. That's why we're trying to embed with these accelerators, these small tech startup firms. If we can get in on the ground floor and build partnerships at the start, this technology can be aligned more towards our defense needs. Those opportunities that present themselves from those unique partnerships between industry and military, start to expand and grow. So no longer are we necessarily having to adapt to what commercially exists out there. Now things are being built for us, and at the speed of relevancy, as we're solving these problems. So I think it's an interesting dynamic that's leading to this expansion of these different programs. That's why you're seeing so many new programs kind of pop up where you're embedding more with industry or you're embedding more with universities. So yeah, a lot of exciting opportunities out there. And I know there's gonna be more to come. Down the road.
So this is an interesting segue that we can discuss, because you hit on a really good point. We've definitely, as a DoD, expanded our focus on investing in new technology and expanding the amount of industry partners that we use. This is really an interesting situation because everyone is trying to bring on industry partners. Everyone is chasing the same technology from different partners. So does this, in y'all's opinion, it provides benefits, but also is this also probably an issue that we might have to face in the future, that we have a lot of fragmented software that are doing the same thing. It's just no one talks to each other. I have all these random offices doing R&D on the same things.
Ooh, big question. For some reason, I keep thinking of the book. It's called The Starfish and the Spider. One of our fellow DVP people, Packy Hill, recommended it to me, and they talk about the structure of how back in early stage days, we needed a monarch, we needed a king, we needed a leader to tell us. But as time has gone on and on and on, we've kind of started to see these little tribes forming, these different groups, and that hierarchy kind of starting to be flattened, and people starting to connect with each other more and more. I think, I guess to answer your question, that I guess my hope out of all of this is that at least for career fields, we'll start talking to each other more. I want to say that we've started seeing that more. I guess I should give a little bit more background too. I'm a knowledge manager by trade. That's why the Air Force hired me. And I remember sitting down, reading my basically description on how to do my job. Is they said you needed to be part of a community of practice, people who talk about what you do and are sharing information. And I think with the invention of Slack and with COVID actually hitting, it's forced the military to adjust to that and start connecting in new and different ways. And now it's just waiting for our policies and procedures to come and catch up to us. I just think that at least in the innovation space, we're spearheading that. We're giving use case scenarios for that, because like we all just went through DVP. Some of us weren't even in the same country when we were doing it, and we were communicating and sharing it back and forth, and we're just tearing down those bridges that have been put in place. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it, Shafan, is that we'll start to see that transition, but I think there's still a need for somebody to be in charge. It's just at the lowest levels, at our levels as enlisted members, we're more likely to reach out to somebody in Japan working on a similar project.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to see, at least from my point of view, like I'm seeing a lot of this, these let's call them bifurcated efforts. They are coming together. I think it's mostly because these programs we have, right? These programs that are emerging are allowing us, like they're just growing the network, right? More and more people are able to communicate on these like consolidated platforms. All these groups are, exchanging information rapidly. I mean, whether or not it's like doing fellowship programs, Spark cells, Vision platform, for example, like sharing, actually like working on projects, like it doesn't matter where you are in the world, like we can collaborate on these projects. So I think a lot of that is starting to basically align all that chaos where everything was grassroots, but now we're starting to see these trends emerge. And as those trends emerge, we can start being like, hey, let's start aligning these efforts and let's get together. I've been seeing that the last year. What's really funny that Sully did not bring up was the fact that, yeah, he is a knowledge manager, and I have never seen so many companies beg for help from the fact they don't have a knowledge manager. Like all through our cohort, like people were just like begging him, like, "You're a knowledge manager, can you please help us?" I think that's actually a really interesting perspective, because like I think sometimes in the Air Force, like we see our jobs as like that's what we are. Like I know y'all heard this conversation where like, folks in the Navy, they're like, "What do you do?" And it's like, I'm a Navy, seaman, or I'm a Marine, or I'm a soldier. You do that to the Air Force, everybody's like, "I do this job, this job, this job." Nobody ever says I'm an airman. So like, "So you're a knowledge manager." I'm a firefighter by trade. That's my trade, right? But I think we're starting to learn, especially in this innovation space, that it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what your job is. At the end of the day, it's not about the job as much as it's like, hey, we are a military member. Like we're an Air Force member. Like that's what kind of bridges, that's our career. Like that's what we're actually doing. The job is just what we happen to do during the day. Jobs change. That's something people got to understand. Jobs will change. Like you can get picked up to do something else, but your career is that Air Force member, that enlisted member to defend your country. And, I just see so many people come in this space. It doesn't matter what your background is. Like if you're passion driven, you can make a real impact here. Sorry, I go on rants. I'm sure, Dustin, you probably have a bunch more questions.
Yeah, actually, just last one. I forget who mentioned it, talking about how shift was a great way to kind of get away from whatever your normal career field is. Is there any limitation on that? I know Air Force School, for example, and most of the education opportunities we have, it has to some way align with your AFSC. The opportunities you have with shift, are they going to pair you with a company in some way that aligns with your Air Force specialty, or is it sort of free form, whatever best benefits you, the member?
Look, shift is not giving away how the algorithm works. We asked for 8 weeks. We asked, how does this work? And they're like, it's proprietary. They're not giving us anything. It's really what you put down. Like, what are your interests? They have essay questions. So depending on how you answer, you might be with something that's like your AFSC. Like I'm a manpower analyst by trade, and I went to a VC firm that did cybersecurity and national security. And that's partially because I have some cybersecurity in my resume, but that has nothing to do with my actual career field.
Yeah, I'll second that. There's secret sauce. That's close to the chest. It's a very guarded secret. Yeah, it's open to any AFSC. One of the things I thought was really awesome, and I know Sully saw it too, was we have people from other branches. It's a DoD program, by the way. It's not like an Air Force program. So they're taking people from all walks of life. I mean, we had folks from like the Reserves and Guard, like in the Marines, like they were in there. Like it was, I don't know, it was really exciting, especially to see some of those other branches that, like, if we think these opportunities, like we're like shocked that we never heard of them. Like when you see folks from the Marine Corps, like they're like, like, this is amazing. This whole area we didn't know. Like, it's just like it's a kind of an eye opener. It's like, wow, like, if there's things we don't think we know about, like, you can see other people from different walks of life in the military, different branches, and they're just like, yeah, like, if you think you guys didn't know about it, like, we don't know about any of this stuff. Like, you guys at least know like little tidbits about things, but it's completely foreign to us. So I don't know. That was very refreshing for me to just see, like, basically anybody can get in this program, if they're passionate, they want to do these things. It is competitive. In fact, I think it's highly competitive. I think I forget what the number was. We actually looked at percentages of people to get in, but how much work you're willing to put in. Are you willing to open yourself up to an opportunity? That's probably the biggest step.
Yeah, I will say, ironically enough, while those two may have not gotten exactly what was related to their AFSC, I kind of did. I worked with the company Golden. I jokingly refer to it as the next bigger, better thing than Wikipedia on steroids. And so that company was all about information. And as a knowledge manager, I'm just very interested in, like, AI, machine learning, and just how to get that information to share. What I will say is that the company took a different approach. It's like a hybrid between a hierarchy structure and a decentralized structure, where they just tap into the world to get the information that's relevant, and just updating the information so that way if you were to search it on their site, it would be reliable and they could point where they got the information and when it changed, which is actually really cool. And I guess if it's cool with everybody, I'd like to transition and just hear a little bit about your experience working with the company in, like, the first 2 weeks when you were partnered with them. Yeah, Ike, Shafan?
Fire hose. Drinking from the fire hose. That's what it was. Like, going to a VC firm and not really understanding what they did on a day-to-day basis. 100%. It's like, here's your reading list just to get a baseline understanding. And then it's like a lot of your learning on the job. And there's also tidbits that aren't necessarily taught. So there was one point, I think it was maybe the third week, and we're on the umpteenth call, umpteenth 30-minute meeting with a potential startup. And after the meeting, we're kind of like doing a hot wash. And I'm like, Dan, I didn't understand until like just now. You're always working. Always. Even a call that you feel is not relevant to anything whatsoever. We're friends from college, right? That's a business meeting. 100%. They're always networking. There's always someone in your network who might know something that you don't know. And that might just randomly come up in conversation with them. It was that understanding that you always need to be aware of like opportunities out there and really take advantage of opportunities when they're there. And it wasn't like we were having calls to like, hey, I need this. Can you give me this? No, never. It was never like that. It was simply a phone call. Like, what do you have going on? This is what I have going on. Right? Is there any crossflow? Like, could we work together on something? Can we collaborate? And you see that a lot in this space. Like, you might just take a call because you haven't talked to someone in a while and you realize you guys are working on the same thing. Like, how can we partner? Like, how can I help you? And that's how I feel about the space. It's so open and everyone is trying to help each other. And that was also the refreshing part about being in the space. Everyone is looking to help.
Yeah, you know what? I think I can sum up my entire, I think the entire experience, definitely the first 2 weeks, just insight. And it kind of goes to what the shift team kind of talks about. Like you're here for a reason. You may not know what it is. Don't go in with expectations, but there's a reason you're here, right? So like, I was always talking about like imposter syndrome. Like my first 2 weeks, I was just like, I don't know what I can do with this company. Like I know nothing about disinformation campaigns. I don't know anything about the space. Like I don't really pay attention to, the news all that much. So I was just like, I don't know what value I bring to this environment, to this team. And, I'm just kind of listening. I'm just kind of like hanging out, just kind of seeing what's going on, just kind of scoping everything out. And then I kind of realized, I'm like, hey, there's some things that you guys aren't, you guys maybe aren't aware of. It could be things of like, hey, this is how you talk to the military. This is how you find military customers. I did a lot of just translating. That's what I was. I was just like translating like what the company was trying to accomplish, like what their vision was, and trying to align that to customers within the military. That's all I did. And a lot of that was like me just kind of translating like, hey, this is what this team is trying to do for the military. They're trying to do this, and this, and kind of like padding out some of those conversations that, of course, us in the military, we have with our teams. Like, hey, can we trust these people? Like, are they trying to pull the wool over our eyes? Like, what's going on, right? So just kind of building trust and trying to break down some barriers just to have those conversations, because we're very siloed when we talk about things. And unfortunately, for us to get to the next level, like, we can't be siloed anymore. Like, we've got to work with these industry partners, with these universities. Like, we have to work with people outside of our sphere if we're going to change things. Like, if we just keep everything in an echo chamber, like, we're not going to get the things done that we need to get done, and we're going to fall behind. That's just not an option for us. And we're the U.S. military. It's not an option.
I will say that, like, listening to you guys talk, my experience was drastically different. It was day number 2, and they just announced that they got a $40 million Series B fundraising. And it was like, oh, hey, so like one of our point of contacts, one of the people that we started building relationships was like, hey, I got to go now. Bye. And so for like the next week, we're like, who are we supposed to talk to? Like, we had access to anybody, but like we didn't know who our main POC was. Everybody like teleworked, and it was just like, I didn't realize how quickly things changed day to day, let alone week to week. Like one day somebody was there, the next day it was like, oh, hey, I got to go prioritize something else. Here's somebody else for you. But I feel like at the same time, our unique experience in the military has taught us to adjust with that change. Because I remember my partner Phil and we were sitting there and we're like, well, what do we want to do now? And they're like, this almost feels like I'm at work right now. And so we're like, well, let's just start exploring the system and just hammering down into the details and just basically trying to understand the product, because we didn't have a guide anymore. And so like I felt like it helped for us to be able to search and to explore. And that's kind of what I really started to appreciate that was unique, was like we really had to step out of our comfort zone and reach out to people. I remember so many times typing up going, hey, do you want to meet for 30 minutes? Because a meeting any longer than 30 minutes, like they're like, no, sorry, too busy. And they're like, just hit me up on chat, and like you'd have a full-blown conversation in less than 5 minutes. And just still feeling lost by the end. Like, I'm still digging through, trying to understand like kind of the DVP experience and how I can bring it to my next job. And I guess like just to lead it again, guys, is like, Shafan, it's been a little bit for you. What did you learn from DVP that you couldn't express when you got done with it immediately?
One of the big things was really like keeping track of information. So I was at one point, I still do, I have a lot of artifacts. I have like 6 notebooks of things like written down, just notes from different places. And in DVP, it was like, no, I can't do that. I have to be way more organized because there's so much going on. And then I watched how like, the principal at Squadra would take notes. Everything was digital. Like he was always at his computer typing. And then one day he showed me his Airtable, which he pretty much created the CRM out of all the people that he's met throughout his career, where they work, what do they do? And I was like, oh, that's a game changer, 100%. Like, I need to do that. With all the people you come into contact with, you don't remember names, you don't remember where they work. There's so much information all the time. It's like, I started one in Notion while I was in DVP that I actually briefed during my final capstone, and people asked like, hey, can we get the template for that? And like, I never had the chance to fully flesh it out once I got back to my day job. But it was like, just keeping track of everything and being organized is the key to actually like getting stuff done. Like, that's the key to productivity for me. Just keep everything organized.
True. Dustin, I know I know probably everybody's got to get running soon. As you're kind of like, I would say like you're probably the one person who came into the space like the latest. Like after everything you just heard, like just curious, like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this isn't advertised a bit better. Because it's definitely something that I would have wanted to take advantage of if I had a bit more time at this base still. Maybe I'll have to look into it at a future location, but it's just one of those things we really need to spread the word about and just really get the information out. I'm very curious about the entire thing, everyone's experiences. It's been great to hear about it all. I learned a lot about, what's the difference between a venture capital firm, a startup, an accelerator, all that stuff. Some of the other non-traditional pathways that are available out there. Just how Shift can be used to expand your horizons, not just within your primary career field, but your whole airman concept, or anyone really, because it's a DoD program. Those are kind of my thoughts on it. But yeah, it's about time to wrap this guy up. Does anyone have any closing remarks?
DVP. DVP.
I was like, what is that over here? No, honestly, I just appreciate everybody's time. Again, talk about it because I think Dustin, you hit the nail on the head. We got to share the good news, man. And hopefully some folks will hear about this. I know this is something we really hit hard on throughout the year to bring this opportunity to the members of our installation, of our tribe, at RAF Lakenheath. So yeah, super excited to keep spreading that good word and just see people take advantage of those opportunities. Take a chance. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, extremely grateful for the opportunity. I don't think I'd be sitting where I am today if not for that opportunity that I got, that I just took a leap of faith on. And shout out to the people who really pushed this forward. Mike Slaw, Maria, Chief Eishin, or Ian Eishin at this point. Those are the people in the space that are pushing these things forward.
No, 100%. 100%.
Super grateful for these conversations, and just grateful. Just feel free to reach out. Just hit us up on LinkedIn, or just ask us about our experience, and we'd be happy to share and try to get people more involved. I mean, I'm just happy to be here with you guys, hearing your stories.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time. Have a good day. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Nailed it.